All right, Jermaine, I think we can get going. Thank you everybody for joining us. Jermaine, thanks for joining me. Jermaine is our Director of Intelligent Technology Consulting. My name is Brendan Howe. I'm Techify CEO, and we're here today to talk about 5 collaboration ideas your team will love.
Happy to be here.
And we're excited about this, right? Like this is a whole new world. This is everybody's been talking kind of nonstop about how people are working differently. If we look at our poll, we have about 80%. 80% of our little under 80% of our attendees today have people working remotely, either 100%,
Nice.
100% of their staff working remotely, either all or some of the time. And the rest, about 75%. Basically, everybody that's on here has people working remotely. And then 100% of folks today have responded that when the pandemic subsides, when we get the vaccines, when we eventually, hopefully, go back to normal, they're going to allow more people to work from home than they did before the pandemic. So whether we just talk about the next kind of 8 or 9 months, or we talk about moving forward, what we're going to talk about today is very relevant to how we're all going to run our businesses. So let's get it. Actually, just before we get into it, a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to go for, we usually go in our webinars. These are what we call our hot tech takes webinars. We've been doing these on a monthly basis. The recordings are available on our Techify website. Should anybody want to go see, listen, watch past webinars. We go for about half an hour. Then we take questions. If anybody has any questions, please put them in the Q&A panel. We will have a couple of polls that we will be asking throughout, including the one that everybody has just answered. So
great.
I don't think I missed anything. I think we can get going now.
Moving along.
Awesome. So here's what we've been talking about. 4 key technology strategy trends since COVID. Work from anywhere. We're going to get into that today. Number 2, people wanting to better use the technology that they're already paying for, whether it's Microsoft or Adobe licenses or Autodesk licenses or Creative Suite stuff or various things. People are really looking to get more out of the technology that they're already paying for. I'm hearing more and more from people, hey, like technology is now more important than it was ever was before. Cybersecurity has become an even bigger trend, if that was possible, given everybody's working outside or a lot of people are working outside the corporate firewall now. And Jermaine, we're getting a real big sense from folks that they want to move from being reactive to much more proactive about their technology.
Yeah, definitely. Nobody wants to go through what they went through when it started at the beginning. And where's my computer? How do I unplug this? Can I work from somewhere else? So nobody wants to go through that anymore. So we are getting a lot of the push for the proactive. I want to be ready for the next big change.
For sure. And so we're going to be, what we always like to say, pulling back the curtain on one of these areas today, which is the work from anywhere. We're going to be talking about collaboration. And I wanted to start with some stats from Statistics Canada. During the height of COVID, we saw about 1/3 of businesses were reporting more than 10% of their workforce was working remotely.
Yeah.
And in the States, I saw some data that said it was actually 50% in the States. So this isn't going to surprise anybody. This is pretty obvious, right? At least a quarter of those folks that were surveyed said that will continue. Based on our sample size on this webinar, pretty much everybody says that's going to continue. So this kind of remote collaboration is obviously more important. It's very timely, and it's why we wanted to do this webinar on it today. Another study from MIT, and so this was what they called the MIT COVID Pulse of HR survey, and they surveyed almost 500 different HR leaders. And they wrote a great article, happy to share it with everybody, about 5 ways that leaders can support remote work.
Right.
And it was related to these different areas. And they talked about what are the kind of key, respondents were asked, what are the key things that are important about remote work? So we had 47% of people mentioned and well. 45% talked about providing proper technology for remote work. 29% talked about providing emotional social support. 24%, about a quarter, maintaining productivity and engagement. And then you had 18% and 15% mentioning that work-life balance piece, which is super interesting when your work and your life are all of a sudden becoming the same place, as we've always kind of found. And then that well-being piece. So we're going to touch on each of these and give basically five things that folks can do and give their team in terms of collaboration ideas today. So just before we get going, we've made some assumptions, and there's some assumptions that we like to do these webinars not at kind of a basic level, but we like to do them at Jermaine, like a 200 or 300 level, right?
Yeah, definitely 300.
Yeah. So, and we don't want to, we're just going to put up a little poll here. We don't want to assume that, say, hey, come to a webinar and tell everybody, hey, you should really use this Teams thing, right? Because that would, that'd be pretty basic. And so we've made some assumptions that we'll get into in a minute, but it'd be great to get feedback from everybody on what tools they're currently using to collaborate.
Right.
So I see our responses are coming in, and that's given us a good idea. Okay. Awesome. So let's, Jermaine, let's fire through what these assumptions are that we've made before we move into the kind of 5 key things that we think people should be doing.
Sure. So the assumptions are you're already on Teams and you're going through and utilizing some form of Teams, whether it's chat functions, internal peer calls, whatever you're doing with it, but you're having some form of engagement with it. Secondly, you're already sharing documents online, and not necessarily the usual, hey, here's the one document that I've attached, but here's a link to the document that I have that I'm sharing with you. So you're sharing stuff online directly. And key documents specifically, things that you need to have access to externally or otherwise, are online and are capable of being shared directly as a link versus attaching that specific document anywhere else. So those are, I'll run them again. You're already on Teams. You are already sharing documents online, and your key documents are hosted online, right?
All right. So it looks like, based on our polling results, everyone is currently using Teams. There's about 50% of folks that are using SharePoint, and there's a little bit of use of forms. We're seeing people emailing links, sometimes using emailing links, sometimes attachments, and what else? People using Teams effectively for sharing documents. So I think we got a lot of good stuff going on in terms of where we're starting from today.
Excellent. And I think it'll be most useful for what we're going to throw in as we go to collaboration idea number 1.
All right.
So
idea number 1, we have equipping our staff with the right tools, right? So Jermaine, why don't you tell us what that means? What do we mean by equipping people with the right tools?
So I want to thank you for that, Brendan. I want to take everybody through just a very short journey in a couple of seconds. When COVID hit, I had a laptop with possibly a plug-in wireless mouse and a keyboard so I could type faster and navigate. By the time I got to today, I've got a unique setup that has everything in it that I think I would need for a small production studio. So I've gone from just having that one laptop screen to work to being fully comfortable and fully powerfully equipped in order to do that work as efficiently as possible. And what that really means is I've got a good work from home space, and I've got some simple working environments set up that hasn't got any clutter or crazy stuff going on with it. It's just set up so that it optimizes me for work. And it adds a little bit of a different flavor to my day to day, because again, my workspace is in my home. So now I'm figuring out, how do I detach? I'm not commuting on the highway or doing any of that anymore. How do I make my workspace look work-like and keep it as non-intrusive on my home life as possible? We want to make sure that the work from anywhere essentials are in place. You've got a good chair to sit in, something that will give you the support for working at a desk and a keyboard all day. A nice keyboard, right? Nobody wants to type on those little tiny keyboards where all of your fingers are together. And I've got really big hands, so that's usually a problem for me. A computer that works well, right? Frustrations, rebooting, starting up, computer's slow. Nobody wants to click on something and it takes 4.5, 5 seconds to launch, right? And then the software tools that you're empowering everyone with. So your SharePoint, whether it's Yammer, Teams, Zoom, any of the meeting credentials tools that you're using to make all of that possible. And then of course, a fluffy pet here or there, or a nice plant, right? You don't want to make it too sterile. Everybody needs a little bit of that endorphin level and cortisol, keep you less stressed. Good desk, a little bit of natural light, right? I was speaking to a friend over the weekend. We were catching up, and he says, sometimes I don't know if it's day or night because his family's put him in the basement, and there's one little tiny window that gets covered by the bush outside. So it's dark all day. All right. And I said, well, all you need to do is roll up a cot in there. Like, you're just going to sleep. It's like being in prison. So get a little bit of natural light in there and some desk lighting, right? To make sure you look good, right? This isn't an unsolved mysteries episode where you're interviewing the person and all you see is the silhouette, and you're having their conversations. I've been on so many calls. I'm trying to read facial expressions and I can't, there's no way to tell what's happening.
Well, it's funny when you don't have the right lighting and the right setup for a virtual call, you can look like you're in the witness protection program, right? Like if you're backlit or top lit, you can't see the face. And we really have to coach all of our teams on how to do this properly, right? Like you make eye contact, you have a proper external video, external mics. I bought this kind of cool podcasting mic because when COVID started, I got sick of like yelling at my computer. And it was crappy audio too, right?
Yeah.
So it's nice to have the external devices and kind of have these better tools.
Definitely makes good sense. So yeah, I mean, we've covered it all there. So we want to make sure that people are set up, they're comfortable, so that we can get that productivity, as well as making sure that they're taken care of, right? Because it's very important. So I'm going to jump across now, and we're going to jump into idea number 2.
Yeah. So our idea number 2 was sort of vaulting people beyond just using Teams for video calls, which a lot of people are using Teams. People are starting to get a little bit into sharing files and posting files and stuff like that. But there's so much more in Teams. Like if you just need to do video calls, you could just use Zoom, right?
Correct.
But there's that functionality in Teams that allows, I know our team has been getting a lot out of using Teams properly and the different functionality and stuff like that. Yeah. So Jermaine, I don't want to steal your thunder.
Hey, you know what? There's a lot of good thunder. I was reading something recently online, and you know how everybody's always talking about the premium license and this thing and the premium service. And Microsoft has 2 versions of Teams. One is the premium version, which you get with your licensing already, but the other one is the freemium version. And it's freemium because realistically, it has pretty much about 90% of what everybody else has in their licensing, because again, everybody needs to be able to use it. Everybody wants to be able to get on there and get that functionality out of it. So whether you're on the freemium version or the premium version, it works really well. And a couple of things that go beyond just the chat box and the video calling is to have your actual PBX phone system built into it. Because if you're making video calls and everything from your mobile device, your tablet or your computer, like why do you need to go to your LAN desk phone or any of that to make a phone call? I know a few people back when it first started with the whole COVID work from anywhere, they were dialing in to their mailbox at the office phone mailbox every day from their mobile to check if they had any special messages. Right?
That's like having the old Zach Morris phone in the car, and you're driving along, and you're
Right.
holding a big brick phone, and you don't have like.
And then you had an extra pocket on your belt like Batman for the spare battery. So it's just, you know, things are changing and we're moving forward with it, and it just makes good sense to go just beyond the basics of what covered in Teams.
Well, just before you move on, Jermaine, I just wanted to add in, I'm having more conversations these days about phone systems than I ever did. Like phone systems didn't really matter that much before.
Right.
But phone systems have really started to matter in terms of customer service, in terms of sales. Just with everybody working all over the place, if your phone system doesn't travel with somebody easily, and there's it's difficult if you got to connect to a VPN or you got to use a bunch of different pieces of software, or as Jermaine says, call in to get your messages. It's not the way, like everybody's used to now. Video, voicemail, the Teams integration is really super cool, so we can reduce the number of applications that we're using, and there's all sorts of benefits. There's the AI engine that actually transcribes voicemail, so you never actually listen to a voicemail.
Correct.
There's lots of
it's good. It's awesome stuff. So we're going to jump across. And the next thing that I wanted to talk a little bit about is we've got the engagement piece. So yeah, the technology is doing its thing, but how do we make sure that we keep our team engaged? And how do we, gone are the days that something exciting happens in the office and we're going to run by somebody's desk and do a high five, or, ring the gong and everybody comes in to celebrate. So how do we keep that touch point with our team and our staff, right? So as an example, within the Teams integration, there's so many applications that you can integrate into Teams. I believe it's around 200. There must be something in there that will be useful for every user or every company. And as you go along, they're going to add more. But finding that is important, right? Integrating something as simple as this peer recognition tool. I go into my general channel here in Teams. I can say, hey, Brendan's done an amazing job of working with me on the preparation for this webinar. Here's 100 points, Brendan, and I give a badge, and then it jumps across and it posts it on our company channel externally. And then from there, you can say, well, hey, look, these two persons have gotten recognition from Jermaine. It says, hey, awesome job doing your training. You're a valued asset here, and I give you 500 points, right? Whatever the points turn out to be later on, it's kind of like Canadian Tire Cash. You can definitely use it. You just have to figure out how. But it works because we have that engagement tool, and it makes really good fun. And then the other thing is we've got within there, you can really specialize and make things unique to your personality. So as an example, I'm going to throw up this video here quickly. It's only a few seconds long, just to kind of give you a quick demonstration of how easy it is to run something simple as creating and formatting a post in Teams. I'm going to go ahead and launch that and share it. There we go.
Want to post in a channel? Type a message and then format it. If you want to create an announcement, select a post type and choose Announcement. Add a headline to make your post stand out. Choose a color scheme or add your own background image for the headline area. Then format how you want. And select Send to post it.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Jermaine. It just makes me think about we just hired a new person. And we should be putting a Teams announcement and creating a big deal of. It's a great idea.
Yeah, so and it was less than 30 seconds to get that set up, and it just makes good sense. You can really formulate your own personality in there as well, right? Well, look, Brendan, I think I've talked a lot about this. I think it's time we go take a look at another one of our collaboration ideas, right? How about we? I'll hand this one over to you.
Yeah, so let's go number 3. So number 3 we have is a focus on wellness. So this is where kind of Microsoft's getting a little different. I think a lot of us are adapting, right? Instead of just being productivity focused, we got to mix in the wellness piece here. And there's a whole bunch of stuff you saw in that research that I showed initially, that there needs to be a focus on that work-life balance, right? And so we're seeing a lot of people are reaching out and doing those team building online, playing games, coffee chats, virtual lunches. That sort of thing is really important to keep connected with your team and monitor for burnout. It's super easy to get burnt out these days, right? Video calls nonstop. I'll give you a couple other ideas here. My analytics. We did a full webinar on some AI machine learning stuff that Microsoft has, but this is a really cool tool. If you're not suggesting your staff use it, we'd strongly recommend it. This is a self-coaching tool that gives people individual feedback just to them on how they're using their calendar, if they're blocking off focus time, if they're disconnecting, right? It's going to pull a bunch of recommendations. So the next slide talks about kind of an example of three different recommendations that it pulled for, and this is one for me. It's saying, hey, there's somebody that you're spending a lot of time in the same meetings with. Maybe you can divide and conquer the number of meeting hours. But this third one it was sort of a big one for me. Is saying, hey, you're distracted by email. You're checking your email too often. And when I clicked on the view suggestion, it said, maybe don't check your email quite as much. And so Jermaine's smiling because he knows I reply to email quickly. I probably look at my inbox way more than I should, but it adds to my stress level. So if we can cut that down, that's really important. And there's all sorts of scheduling things that we can do too. And everything from guarding your calendar to using a tool like Microsoft Bookings. So what's up on the screen here this is a neat tool that is to go back and forth and saying, hey, how's Thursday at 2:00? Or no, I can't do Thursday. And then you have like 6 people emailing back and forth and trying to find a time.
Yep.
Well, whether they're in your organization or outside of your organization, you can actually use a built-in tool to Microsoft 365 that doesn't cost any more, called Microsoft Bookings. And it's a really great tool. I love it. I use it on a regular basis. And it's a way that we can just kind of, get a little bit of the stress level down, and you can control your schedule. You can control how people book stuff, all that sort of thing. So one last thing that I found adds to stress, either do it yourself, coach your team on it, the notification settings. Like anytime anytime I go over to a member of our team and I look at their desktop, and every time an email comes in, ding, there's a pop-up or there's a ding, or it's like, that's just like having somebody going at you all day long, right? So managing your notification settings and telling your team how they can better manage their notification settings to just, get that stress level down a little bit.
Yeah, nothing like being in a meeting and seeing people looking the other way for the pop-up that just happened, right?
Yeah,
it's always a plus.
Absolutely.
All right. So, Brendan, if we continue along this train of thought, we talked a little bit about scheduling and bookings and the like, but if we were to talk about our next idea and move forward, what I want to talk a little bit about on the collaboration side is Microsoft Planner for projects and initiatives. And the reason I like this one is because, again, it's the same scenario. It's something that exists, can be implemented through teams, and add value to how you plan and schedule people's work, especially because they're all over the place, right? You want to know how somebody's doing? Yeah, great. Have a touch point, but it would be great as well to be able to see the progress from a bird's eye view, especially as the owner or manager of the team. So I really like talking about Planner. I'm happily and open to having these conversations with people in one-on-one and doing demos and the like, because this stuff's fun. So Microsoft Planner, we want to introduce this and talk a little bit about it, just from the perspective that it exists. You can integrate it into your current portfolio. You don't have to spend any more on it, but you want to schedule, meet, and plan ahead for everything that you're doing, right? So as an example here, we've got a simple slide showing that we've got a number of deadlines. We have a ton of people that are in there, and we can look at the calendar from that bird's eye view and see that there are a number of different things already scheduled in there. And then we can then go ahead and say, well, okay, well, based on that, how about I group this by the filter that I'm looking for? We have different departments, so consulting department, professional services, our support desk, and we can group it by that and see what everybody's working on in their individual groups, and then kind of look at what they're working on, how on track they are, and where they're going from there. So that makes great fun and sense to me, because then you could put that together and it makes the whole management of your team from a bird's eye view perspective really good. But then look at this one. I mean, when we take a look at, hey, I've got this stuff on my to-do list today. I know what I'm working on next week. I have a future look of what I'm going to finish for the quarter or the annual. And then I've got stuff with no date, right? So it just makes good sense to have all of that in front of you in that one pane of glass.
And I think I just kind of jump in, Jermaine. One of the things I think we get asked on a regular basis of, hey, I want to manage projects or I want to manage an initiative, but I don't want to go into Microsoft Project. I don't want to use like a heavy project management tool. And the ability just to take Planner, integrate it into Teams and have it there and integrate it into people's inbox and stuff like that I think you're going to show in a sec, it's a lightweight, easy to set up, easy to use tool. And it's much more basic than some of the heavy project management type of tools.
Correct. Like it really is just a glorified task list that allows you to see everything that you have in one plain view, which really does help everyone. And then you can go ahead and add it through the integration with your iCalendar and your Outlook application on your computer, so that everything gets published from your Planner application that you add in Teams into your team calendar. So now you can look at this and say, well, hey, I've got this keynote presentation coming up. Here's the planning week. I'm going to finalize this with HR, do that, take vacation at this point in time. So now you've got a really strong case. And the reminders. How do I know people are going to do stuff? Well, this thing's going to remind them on a frequency you set to make sure that they keep nudging each other along. And then you don't need to do as much checking in, right? So it really does help the efficiency and save time. So with that in mind, I'm going to stop talking for a little bit and hand it over to you.
Well, we've got one other area we're starting to run a little bit out of time here, but we have one other area that we wanted to talk about, and it's Microsoft Forms. And if you think about these different things that we're talking about, these different ideas, everything from how you run online meetings and collaborate to how you share documents to if you get into the world of and using things like Forms, which I'm going to talk about, there's hours of your week that you can save. So if you multiply those hours across the number of people that you have in your business, that's where, the real power of technology comes from. So Forms is this tool, and here's an example, a simple example of how you can use Forms. We sometimes all struggle getting feedback from our teams, and those emails that go out and say, hey, we're going to do a team event. This would, now it would be a virtual team event as opposed to an in-person event, right? But instead of sending those emails, so you have like 800 emails going around and you're annoying people, quick form, you just open it up and you just click add question, and you can put a couple questions, and then you get to easily analyze the data that comes back in. And you see in those data, hey, I've got 24 responses, and majority of the people want to go to, in this case, the museum. So if you take that and extrapolate it to, you know, some other areas of your business, maybe you're out in the field. We worked with some construction industry folks that are trying to get rid of paper. And so they're moving and they're finding interesting ways to use Microsoft Forms to, instead of having somebody write a note on a piece of paper and then bring it back in the office and then type it out, they're putting it right in a tablet, as this very happy guy is showing. We use Forms quite a bit in our business. So anytime somebody puts in a new user, new computer request form, user termination, that sort of stuff, they're actually using something we set up in Microsoft Forms. And then when you start using those as a basic level, then your next step, you can start to automate some of the things that happen with that. You can start getting into the Power Automate realm and doing some really, really neat things that we're seeing more and more clients start.
Yeah, that's spot on. One other thing I'd add into that is, even on our larger pro services projects, when we need to get user information on the individual in a secure way, we send a form and each individual fills it out themselves, and then it gets collated so nobody ever sees the entire list. So now there's no, you know, hey, write your password down on this sheet and pass it around. And so now it adds a level of security as well to it. So yeah,
for sure. So let's just quick summary. 5 collaboration ideas. We talked about equipping your staff with the right tools. We talked about using Teams beyond just video meetings. We talked about a focus on wellness. We talked about Planner, and we talked about Microsoft Forms. And hopefully folks are feeling that that's kind of 5 useful ideas. You know, it's the holiday season. We want to give you some gifts. We could go into any of those things on a much more detailed basis, and we're happy and to answer any questions anybody has. And I'm going to just pop up, we always like a feedback poll to get some feedback from everybody. And I'm going to pull up the Q&A panel in just a sec here. But Jermaine, do we have another webinar this year? Are we doing any?
You know what? I think this was the end of the 2020 webinars, and hopefully the end of COVID into 2021. But our upcoming will be in the new year. Yeah.
Nice. So we're going to give everybody some time after you come back from the holiday, you get settled in. We're going to talk about in January our top 10 tech priorities for 2021. Right.
That's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, it'll be great. And we're going to do our own version of the top 10 list. And you remember the top 10 list of the old days. We're going to come up with a new top 10 people through. Like, one of the things we're trying to do in these webinars is give an easy sort of touch point on a monthly basis for folks to keep up to date with what's happening, what's changing in technology, and that sort of thing. I'm just looking at our question list. Oh yeah, there's our contact information. Anybody wants to contact us, feel free to reach out. There's email, phone, carrier pigeon, whatever you prefer. Reach out. So I've got a couple questions that we want to answer here. Number one, how can you tell what level of utilization your staff have using the Microsoft tools? That's a good question.
A fun one. Why don't you take that one away?
Yeah, sure. Let me take this one, and I appreciate the question. So a lot of people ask, okay, we've got all these different tools that that we're suggesting staff use, but how do we know if they're using it other than maybe like saying, hey, Jermaine, are you using some stuff or that kind of thing? There's actually some really good stuff that Microsoft has, some analytics, and that you can pull it out using Power BI. If you're not familiar with Power BI, see us after class. You can pull out Power BI and actually see what your individual staff members are doing. So you can see how often are people using the chat function in Teams? How often are they posting? Are they sharing files via an email attachment? Or are they sending links, right? And there's all sorts of other kind of touch points here that you can use to say, okay, let's say Jermaine needs coaching on sending attachments as a link, right? Because if he doesn't, by the way, but say Jermaine, you needed some coaching on this because I see it in the analytics, then I'm going to reach out to you and say, listen, if you share a link as opposed to an attachment, you're saving time for everybody. You're saving confusion, versions of documents and that sort of stuff flying back, and we can kind of concurrently collaborate. We talk about this in webinars, but when we're getting ready for this webinar in the last couple of days, we were both working on the PowerPoint presentation at the same time, right? Like stuff's changing and flying around.
I mean, who doesn't miss, or who actually would miss? Hey, who's got the right version of this document? Are we on R4, R14, or R25? Like, which revision are we on? And then you get to the final one and it's missing the last, 4 edits or something from 3 edits ago. And yeah, it's a good way to get that going.
Yeah. Or you're like, oh, we send that to the client, but it's got 2 weeks ago pricing on it, and our margins are all messed up. That would
make some good sense.
All right, we have 2 other questions that have come in, Jermaine. Maybe you could take this one. What makes Microsoft Voice different from systems? Why would it be any different from a Ring Central or some of the other stuff out there?
So that's a great question. Yeah, so if we were to think about it, we want to know what's the same, because we actually get the inverse question most times. What's going to be the same from what I have today in my new system? Can I have dial by name? Can I have a company directory? Can I have extensions? Will I be able to have a voiceover attendant that says, hey, you've called, please click 1 for this or 2 for that? Options within the menus. So a lot of that is all the same. Microsoft's been in the phone system forever. If you think about Skype, PSTN, Link, it's been over 25, 30 years in dealing with the same phone system that everyone else has. So from what actually makes it different is that you have everything that all VoIP systems have, with the exception of the pin to a desk scenario. There's no hardware on site, there's no switching, there's no PBX box, nothing tying you to the location that the number is registered to. And now your phone number is the same across all devices, any device you're using. And then with that, it truly is a mobile phone system, right? So that's the primary difference to make it a standout. I've got another one in here. Just came in. I'm gonna obviously pass that to you. Do you know other ways to do staff recognition for engagement using Teams or other tools?
Well, yeah. So you showed the Crew tool there that we use, which is a separate application that we were able to integrate with Teams. Pretty straightforward. You can do poly polls. Poly's built right into Teams. If anybody hasn't seen that before, that's one way. And you can also like there's a little praise button, so you can actually publicly post praise for a member of a team, and just everybody likes that positive recognition.
And just like that little bit of the video that we did where we're like, well, how do you dress up a post and make it unique to yourself, right? Same scenario. I mean, you hit praise, you put in your own background, you go ahead and you make sure that when you publish it out there, it's like, kudos to this person, give kudos, give praise. So there are a lot of engagement tools that you can use that don't need to be third party. There are third party, but don't need to be something that's paid for externally, that can be integrated.
Yeah, I even find, Jermaine, when people use GIFs and just like funny GIFs of stuff going on, it just lightens the mood a little bit, right? Like it's less kind of chatting back and forth, and it's more, I don't know, it's kind of more fun, right? Like it is to get burnt out with what's going on in the world and all this video stuff that we have to do and that sort of thing. So it's nice to have something that's a little bit fun.
It is. I agree.
Well, that was great, Jermaine. I think we answered some questions. We went through some collaboration ideas. I think we're good to go into the holidays. Quick reminder: we do have a YouTube channel. We post on a weekly basis what we call our business problem series, which are a bunch of ideas for how to solve real business problems using technology more proactively and using technology strategy more proactively. And then, of course, we're going to come back with our priorities for 2021 on January the 20th at 1 p.m.
Awesome. Great. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Jermaine. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. Have a wonderful day.